Gain, Cincinnati ready, including Logan Wilson. And this was during the break in the action as the Jets' Quinnen Williams was sharing his opinion. Players got in between.
So the New York Jets lost in stunning fashion this weekend. And we're sitting here as Jets fans wondering if we're truly an 0-3 team if you minus the miracle comeback that happened last week. Because it's gonna be one of those videos. Let's just talk about it.
I can do it all, I will never fall. It's the Renaissance, you know that I got the mother sauce, man. You know I'm the boss, I know what it costs. Have you won a loss? I'm so versatile, yeah, I'm a Renaissance, man. I can do it all, I will never fall. It's the Renaissance, you know that I got the mother sauce, man. You know I'm the boss, I know what it costs. Have you won a loss? I'm so versatile, yeah, I'm a Renaissance, man.
Congratulations, brother.
And here we okay. So the New York Jets lost 27-12 to the Cincinnati Bengals. And you know what's frustrating about it is that they lost, I believe, not by the fault of the players. And it's going to be very difficult for me to actually say the stuff that I'm going to say in this video because I've been very adamant and loud about the belief I have in Coach Saleh and his staff. But after getting over the emotional roller coaster that was that game, and again, by the third quarter, let's be honest, we were out of it. Seeing the undisciplined aspect of Corey Davis, getting an unsportsmanlike conduct in the end zone when the ball was thrown his way. And if you look back at the video, it looks like as if he could have actually maybe made a play on the ball had he been paying attention. This is one of our veterans. JFM, I mean, come on. I mean, it wasn't a hard hit, but he definitely extended his arm and pushed freaking Joe Burrow. So deservingly so, he got the flag. You saw some good things, but man, did we see a lot of bad things. And then you see the reaction to Quinnen Williams, who I feel like is frustrated with this scheme, frustrated with the fact that he's getting out there, he's in a contract year. There's a lot he still has to prove, not just to himself, but to this organization to validate why we need to go ahead and bring him back on another contract. He was obviously frustrated on the sideline. I've never seen Quinnen Williams go off like that. I don't think any of us have ever seen Quinnen Williams go off like that. To see that anger and fire on the sidelines, I loved it. I loved it because it's a guy that was saying, yo, put it on me. When you hear what that argument was about, it's our defensive tackle talking about, yo, put it on me. We don't need to do no blitz. We don't need to do any of this stuff. Put it on us, the defensive line, to go ahead and get to the quarterback. Now, granted, they didn't do much of that, right? 2 sacks against Joe Burrow. The 31st ranked offensive line was able to hold our extremely expensive defensive line to a mere 2 sacks. But I think the most frustrating part about this whole thing is I don't blame the players. I don't blame the players. Joe Flacco is out of his depth. You already knew, the performance we saw last week, as great as it was, as much of a high it gave us as a fan base, we knew that wasn't freaking something that was, sustainable. Joe Flacco was going to eventually come back down to earth. I didn't think it was going to be this drastic, but we saw Joe Flacco again this week act very much the same way he did in week 1, where he couldn't see the field. And a lot of you guys right now are so frustrated with the offense, but I got to tell you, we have a lot to be excited about in terms of our offensive aspect. But before we jump into that, what were the bads? Okay, so here are the negatives. We lost this game purely on the fact that our defense couldn't touch Joe Burrow. This dude had been sacked 13 times coming into this game. The matchup was set pretty well for our defensive line to be able to feast against the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line. And instead, what we did was we blew it out our ass. Like, we didn't show up. But I'm gonna read you guys something that really, really agitated me today. And I went back and I watched the tape a couple of times and realized, like, wow, we made no adjustments. So last week, Coach Olbrich was actually asked a question in regards to the game plan for stopping Joe Burrow. In that conversation, the cover two came up. And if you're not aware, the cover two scheme has been what has stifled Joe Burrow in that offensive scheme, on the Cincinnati Bengals offensive scheme, very effectively. The previous two teams implemented it about 30 to 40% of the time over the first two games. It's resulted in multiple turnovers, it's resulted in multiple sacks. It worked, it cost those guys losses. So when Coach Ulbrich was asked a question about implementing the cover two in this week's game plan, he said this: there's versions of not necessarily true temper two that we do not have in our arsenal. I'm sorry, that we do have in our arsenal. We do have in our playbook. We'll get variations of that, but it's differently something that they've been maybe not had their best games against. I don't know how he said this, but at the same time, it's hard. It goes to what I think you're implying. It's not something necessarily that we own and know through and through. And it's not necessarily a huge part of our package. I'm always hesitant to break something out like that because there are always snakes in the weed that we don't know, that we're not familiar with. Our players aren't familiar with. We do have versions that are similar too, that can give us the same sort of success. So we had legitimately a blueprint as to how to slow down this particular offense, to slow down Joe Burrow. It doesn't seem like Zach Taylor had figured out how to go ahead and defeat that or get around that. It seems to stump him. And our coach told us that they were afraid to implement it because they're not familiar with it. So it goes back to, is our coaching staff able to go ahead and play chess in the NFL? Because you know what makes freaking the Patriots so good? And I'm gonna hate having to say this. Do you know why the Patriots have been so good? Bill Belichick has been a tactician when it comes to designing his defensive play calling against offenses, tailored offenses. He has tailored his defense to what the opponent's offensive scheme was, and he's targeted the weaknesses and amplified those weaknesses to his benefit. That's playing football. That's being a tactician in the NFL. You need to be able to adjust your game plan accordingly to take advantage of the opponent. We have not amplified the strengths of our team, both on the defensive side and the offensive side. And that's concerning. If the coaches can't adjust, that's telling. We're in year 2 of this rebuild. Last year and this year, these are the numbers in terms of performance, scoring, defense, all of it, right here. They are eerily similar, even though we've gotten drastically better talent-wise. We've gotten better talent-wise. Yet last year we had a bunch of used car salesmen, insurance salesmen, you know what I'm saying, playing, on an NFL roster. We get it. We had to make some adjustments. We were cleaning house. Understood. But you're telling me those guys last year performed as well as the current regime is performing. How is that possible? How is that feasibly possible? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. You can't tell me that this team is only as talented as last year's team, because we're getting the same exact results. Which means the only anomaly here, the constant is the coaching. Miami Dolphins. Yo, Coach McDaniel probably has Tua looking like a freaking Pro Bowl quarterback right now. And let's be honest, Tua's not a Pro Bowl level quarterback. However, in terms of his play, you couldn't argue it, because Coach McDaniel has taken the weapons he has on offense and he has amplified their skill sets. He's taken Tua's strengths and bumped it up several notches. He's taken Tyreek Hill's strengths, bumped it up. Waddle's strengths, bumped it up. He has literally looked at his weapons and he's tailored his offensive scheme to their strengths. He's not force feeding his scheme down their throat. He's not making everybody learn every single position group. He's not making everybody be able to know the playbook and play different positions. No, you know what? Hill, you're good at this route. I'm going to go ahead and find ways to make you an impact player in this offensive scheme running this route. He's doing that. Tua, you're good at this route. You know what I'm saying? Short, intermediate passes. Every now and again, you'll shock the world and throw a freaking a ball like downfield. You know what I'm saying? And you might make a play. I'm going to go ahead and exemplify your strengths, and these short to intermediate passes, I'm going to make it to where like they get the most yak possible from those passes. He has literally tailored his offensive scheme, the very same one that we're trying to implement, to the strengths of his players. The Miami Dolphins just beat the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are by far the best team in the freaking NFL right now. I mean, granted, they struggle whenever it comes to close games. I think right now they're like 0-6 when it comes to one possession games. They tie the freaking Texans for the worst record in the NFL for close game winning margin. 0-6. Not impressive, but nonetheless, they're a very talented team, and I get it. Their secondary was not at full capacity. I understand that. But Tua and the Dolphins beat the Buffalo Bills. They're right now 3-0 in the AFC East. They lead the division. They're one of two teams right now that are undefeated. The Giants have a new coach, implementing new processes. They're looking competent. They're playing competent football. The Jaguars, the freaking Jaguars, right now lead the AFC South. The Jaguars. And it's looking like a completely different thing. And this is a quarterback and a unit that has to go through two different schemes in 2 years, and they look more efficient, more proficient running their scheme than we do in year 2. I'm extremely frustrated about this performance, and I think at some point or another, you've got to start holding somebody accountable. You've got to. You know, I believe in the concept that Coach Saleh is definitely a leader of men. I'm going to say that 1,000 times, right? I do believe that team loves him. They would go ahead and run through a brick wall for him. You saw freaking Quinnen Williams blow up on the sideline, and it makes you wonder. Q, of all people, blew up on the sideline against one of the coaches. And I know he did a press conference saying like, "Oh, it's all good, it's all love, blah blah blah." No, that man was genuinely pissed. He was mad, and I loved it because you know what? At some point or another, this whole like let's keep rotating our defensive players out and every wide receiver has to know every specific pattern and route, you know what I'm saying, on the route tree to run this freaking like you're doing too much. You're literally taking your scheme and you're refusing to adjust it or at all make it more manageable to the strengths of your players, and it's hurting productivity. It's hurting productivity offensively and defensively. At some point or another, you got to be realistic as a coach. Sit down, look in the freaking mirror, and listen to and look at like, man, listen, we're doing just as badly as we did last year with significantly less talent. Hey guys, it ain't the players. Ain't the players. Maybe we need to make some adjustments. You watch the tape. Joe Flacco obviously is an issue. I don't want to get on the offense too much because once Zach Wilson gets back, we'll really start to see, if LaFleur continues onwards from the upward trajectory that he had for us coming out of the season last year. Zach Wilson's mobility, his arm talent, hopefully he can see the field better than Joe can. There were open opportunities missed in the game yesterday. Open opportunities missed in Cleveland. Open opportunities missed against Baltimore. We saw it. This all 22 film access, man, has changed the game for fans, especially fanatics who are trying to figure out, like, why can't we figure it out as an organization? And it's clear that Joe Flacco right now is playing us out of his element. And I'll be the first one to admit that I thought, man, that dude was going to be an elite aspect to our team. We got very fortunate, playing against Cleveland. We are more realistically an 0-3 team than the 1-2 team that we are, just based off of the numbers and the performances alone. Granted, the record is the record, so you got to appreciate that. But man, when I tell you the coaching staff has to really look at themselves in the mirror this freaking week and realize that they have a scheme that they have not adjusted from. The cover 2 was ran one time against the Bengals. When it was proven from the previous 2 games, they did not have an answer for it. It caused confusion. It caused Joe Burrow to hold on to the ball longer. It resulted in sacks. It resulted in freaking interceptions. We got 2 sacks this week. We got the most expensive defensive line in the NFL. We got 2 sacks this week. And where was Bryce Huff? Bryce Huff being a speed rusher would be perfect time to go ahead and activate him in this game. Where the heck was he at? The mental mistakes that occurred during this game, the Whitehead hit where he was going for the big hit. Vice wrap it up, costing that 55-yard touchdown. That was what, a cover 2 blitz, I think it was. And it would have been fine. It would have been able to, create some pressure, stop the play, but instead it turned into a freaking long touchdown play. Undisciplined football. You got Corey Davis fighting in the end zone, not even paying attention to the ball being thrown his way. You got JFM extending his arm, pushing down a quarterback that had gotten rid of the ball almost 2 seconds beforehand. You could have counted it. It was almost 2 seconds, and he's still going for him. I chose not to make a video yesterday after the game because I didn't want to jump on here and just rant and be upset and be pissed off and not have any kind of, you know, validity to my frustrations. But then when I watched the tape again, it just made me more angry. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, there was some good. There was some good. Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, man, I think right now we've got probably a top two in terms of defensive back or cornerback tandems in the NFL. I believe that. Max Mitchell, I think this kid is going to be our freaking legitimate right tackle for years to come. I really like what I saw out of Max Mitchell yesterday. Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, and Conklin are averaging currently right now yards of separation, with their routes. I think the NFL average is like 2.8. They're both significantly above that by a large margin, right? They're all three of them are above that. And that's telling because the whole issue of not being able to separate last year isn't an issue this year. Those guys can separate. They can create plays. We're playing the Steelers next. And hopefully, man, Zach Wilson is back. I know a lot of people are saying, oh my God, we shouldn't put him out there because the blitz is going to be coming. It's going to be scary and blah, blah. No, it don't matter, man. He's the number 2 overall pick from a year ago. That's horse crap. I think we throw him into the freaking fire. You know what I'm saying? And this is year 2. We need to know what you're capable of. This is what an NFL defense looks like. We need you to figure it out. Make plays. At the end of the day, we lost to the Baltimore Ravens, the Cleveland Browns, and the AFC champs, the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm sorry. We didn't lose to the Browns. They wind up giving the win. We won that one. But in all actuality, 1 out of 10 times, that's a loss, right? So we can't count on that kind of performance being the norm because not often are teams scoring 14 points in freaking 90 seconds. That's just not realistic. So nonetheless, those 3 teams are all playoff caliber teams. They are. So it's not like we need to start pressing panic or rejecting or anything like that. It's just that we need to see the coaching staff step it up, man. Like, I get it, man. You guys love your scheme. You love your scheme so much. You're stubborn to it. But the thing is, you're getting outclassed and outcoached by other individuals who are not only new to the head coaching game, but even implementing new systems with the same draft classes last year are looking better than we do, man. And we can't have it. I think Coach Saleh has to have a meeting with the coaches, man, and they need to start adjusting game plans to tailor to the strengths of their team to attack the defenses of the opponents, man, like any good coach would do. It's chess, not checkers. It's chess, not checkers, man. And you've got to be able to adjust on the fly. Tomlin is no scrub. He's an incredible coach. I think he's the top 5 coach in the NFL. We're going up against the Steelers right now, who are desperate for a win. We're going into their house. We're not going to go ahead and walk away with a W if we're coming in with the same game plan that has been seen time and time again, to where they're not even, the other coaches aren't even having to try to go ahead and beat our game plan because they already figured it out. The Jets lost this weekend, but in all actuality, it was a game that could have easily just been in the reverse. We could have won that game if we had just made simple adjustments to our defensive game plan. And if Joe Flacco could just look up for a little bit while longer. Now, granted, on the left side, I don't know what's going on with freaking Fant and Tomlinson. That's been atrocious. Bringing McDermott out there, my God, like, what are we doing? We've got to find some way to secure that left side. Dwayne Brown is probably chilling somewhere on a beach with our money. I'm pretty sure he walked into freaking MetLife hurt. And of course, it's going to be a long, long season if we don't learn to adapt and adjust and overcome. You got to adapt and overcome, man. And if we're not going to do that, it's going to be a long season. And right now, with the left side so questionable, man, thank God for Zach Wilson's mobility. But nonetheless, go Jets. I just do better. Please, just do better. Till next time.
Congratulations, brother.
So how do you guys turn the page now and go to Pittsburgh?
I think we need to have a meeting as far as the defense, because this is unacceptable. Like, the mental errors are unacceptable, from the coaches, from the players, everybody that's a part of this. including myself, it's unacceptable. So we got to have a meeting and just talk about everything. Whether what we're doing is too much, what either we're not over communicating, we gotta cut it out. Like we gotta get it right. Like that has to happen. Has to happen.
You mean a players only meeting or just like a
No, I think
everybody?
coaches, everybody, coaches on the defensive side and players, and we just gotta get it straightened out and tell them the dilemmas, what we're struggling with, what's working, what's not working, and as far as like the players, we gotta over communicate. We gotta over communicate because right now we're not doing that.